Hello and welcome to Heroes of the Mist. I'm your host and Game Master Hawk Robinson, and welcome to this actual play tabletop role-playing game using Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st Edition in a homebrew multiverse setting, Worlds of Beru. Let's introduce the rest of the folks here.
I'm John Welker. I am the Assistant Dungeon Master. Today I am playing my old character, Lindalay, and I'm also playing a reoccurring character. Her name is River. She's not here today due to illness.
Yeah, Lillian is sick, so John will be covering for her. Which she may just spend her character may just be off training to level up.
Her entire session will be going, yeah! Yeah!
She's having a
Woo Jen.
Thank you. She's having a solo story.
Yes.
If you would like to bring her soup, her address is 471 West Elm Street, Spokane, Washington, 51364.
Fibbing! Adam?
Hey there, I'm Adam. I'm going to be playing Torin, who turns out was a scout the whole time. What are the chances of that? Makes a lot of sense, though, since I haven't died from falling down a mountain yet. So, yeah, there we go.
Why don't you explain that in meta terms, then?
Right. Meta terms, I had built this around the thief class from the original player's handbook. However, because of character choices, it didn't make sense for Torin to be things like stealing or even know what a lock was, because he's probably too dirt poor to have ever needed anything to actually lock up. So, those skill sets didn't make a lot of sense for him to be progressively getting better at, and he's still illiterate and therefore can't naturally read all sorts of languages he comes across. So it turns out from the Dragon Magazine, issue 161, page 72, the Scout class is a thief that does not have a lot of the stealing aspect. Rather, it has a lot more perception and mobility, such as not being able to, backstab, but being to fall from like 30 feet and get up and just be fine. So, good choice for Torin, and much more sensible than using what was in the player's handbook originally.
Hello, I'm Katie Coonan. I am playing Moisha Turtlebomb. Moisha is a dwarf tailor who was seeking adventure for the sake of romance. And it's been difficult enough he's not sure that his lady love was worth the effort.
They seldom are.
Oh! Did your wife watch the stream?
When it comes to having to, if you have to prove yourself to them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good saying that.
Maybe it's not meant
they
to be.
seldom are.
Yeah.
You ever see Stardust?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great example.
Prefer Princess Bride. You know.
Introduce yourself.
I am Andrew, and I am present this week. So that's
Yay!
good.
You're a wonderful gift to the rest of the group.
Nick of time. I was almost late here, but
As opposed to Chronos of time.
Yes. And I play Talk, who is a gnome illusionist seeking fame and fortune as a illusionist entertainer.
Do you have a brother named Tick?
What's that?
Do you have a brother named Tick? Or sister?
Actually,
Sibling? You don't know.
Originally, Tick was a girl.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, Talk was a girl,
Okay.
and Tick was the brother. But
Okay.
I renamed Tick into Talk for this campaign.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
We have ways of making you talk.
And he's got a little bit of a Celtic lilt to his voice. And he's trying to discover who he is, where he comes from.
Mm-hmm. And his aspirations are to become...
You
already
know,
covered. Okay, all right.
World famous illusionist entertainer.
Joe.
I'm Joe Coonan. I am playing Ferhat Guerion. Ferhat Guerion is a simple contracted enforcer for his grandfather's weaving concern and far off India. We make the finest silks available in the eastern and the desert lands, and sometimes people don't pay us what they agreed to. And so, in that case, he uses his skills as a fighter and thief to acquire what is rightfully theirs. He is a half-elf, He doesn't know any other half-elves. He doesn't know any other elves. He just has 7 brothers and sisters who are all purebred humans and have to make holidays.
And Joe, you want to go ahead and plug your organization?
Oh, sure, yeah. I perform with and I teach improv and acting at Jet City Improv, Seattle's premier fast-paced improvisational comedy theater. If you are in the Seattle area this week, you should come to our annual international festival, the Seattle Festival of Improv Theater, going on Wednesday the 20th through the 24th on Sunday. We'll have groups, 30 groups from all over the country coming to visit us, including Theme Park Improv from LA featuring John Michael Higgins from Best in Show and Pitch Perfect, as well as Simon Helberg from Big Bang Theory.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Very cool.
$22 and a smile will get you in the theater.
Costs more if you don't smile.
No admission if you're not smiling.
And behind the scenes, we have Dan here helping with the tech and the artwork, and then Pyro is helping moderate in the chat room. Dan, have you had a chance to update any more of the drawings for the PCs?
I know I uploaded it.
I got all those.
I haven't been able to do more work on it yet.
Okay, without the colorization, do you have them so you can start plugging them into here? So at least we have the black and white versions for, because remember I wanted to have their portraits for each character on the screen at all times, or you know.
I'm gonna get to that this week to make sure that
Okay,
everything's,
yeah, let's get that going, because and then when you get to colorize them, then I want to turn them all into. We need to make a banner for all of them, but would love to see that finally come to reality here. Because I was off on the episode numbers. We were actually, I think I said episode 32. I think we're actually 33. And so I think this is episode 34. So we're plunking along here. We started back in the very end of June last year, and we keep chugging along the story. So, previously on Heroes of the Mist. And if you're curious about it, go to mistheroes.com. Everybody here had made it to the Druid's Gate just in time for the Fall Festival. It's a week long of partying, the first 3 days of which involve heavily engaging with the Fae and giving thanks to them and offerings and sometimes insights and mischief. You guys had your first night with them, and you can check out the previous episodes for what happened there. Each of you had various encounters, some more pleasant than others. Then morning came around. Some were up all night. Others went to bed earlier and slept in the barracks and woke up refreshed. The others who stayed up all night had taken some food and drink and such that helped them get through the night still being energetic and awake, but were kind of maybe napping a little bit in the morning and such. So it was daytime, and you were going through the morning and the afternoon. I think you had all eaten lunch by the time we wrapped up the last session. You had started to gather. Let's have each of you recap what you remember from your last session, just so everybody gets back into that mode. John, what was your character, Lindalay, doing?
Lindalay had escorted River to the
Base of the tree.
Base of the tree, and then left as she seemed to have been dismissed, and was just back in town playing his fiddle, playing a reel or a jig, or a real jig. What did I do? Sorry.
Fake jig?
Okay. So he'd gone. Well, he did that earlier during the night, but during the daytime, what was he doing?
No, that was the daytime stuff.
Oh, that was the daytime. Okay.
During the night, he was playing Kenny G on a.
Okay. fade to black. Torrent.
So, Torrent started off with his Blessings Accord, finding out about the druid's ability to talk to animals.
Mm-hmm.
He did a little rock climbing, took a bath, and he got really concerned that maybe...
wall climbing.
Oh, yes. And he got really concerned about possibly...
Don't sell yourself short.
Lady Janera had in fact been kidnapped by the Fae and was out missing, and we all had to go save her right now, so he was running around with his pants out.
That's what he believed.
No one told me anything.
Right, so you're running around trying to find her, running east towards the desert area.
And then she turned out to be just okay. And everyone was mad at Karn. I'm not sure why.
Well, she was irritated with him. Yeah, everybody else wasn't, but she
Oh, yeah,
was.
well.
Well, Farhod's always angry with Karn, but...
Correct.
Only when he's awake.
Nope, even when he's asleep, I think.
No, it's just a mild disdain when he's asleep.
I think we're putting words in Farhod's mouth about Karn.
I'll correct you if you say anything inaccurate.
Okay.
But all's good. So he went and got some food and was going to go, give fresh fruit to the horses and donkey because,
And you were doing that, and they are looking, again, the healthiest you've ever seen them since you've acquired them. What few scars and burrs and such that they had are just healing up nicely, and their coats are even shinier than the day before already. You're just like, wow. And also their hair seems to have grown like an inch overnight. And their hooves are shiny and thick and glossy, and and their eyes are bright and clear. And
it's like
Pretty
imagine
soon
they
they'll
getting ready for the snow they're about to go through.
Pretty soon they'll have hair down past their shoulder blades, like My Little Pony.
Oh no! We are not going to make this a brony campaign.
Do they get a beauty mark?
I don't know what you mean.
Cutie mark.
Oh, it's a cutie mark. Little symbols that all their
How do
My
you not
Little
know this?
Okay.
God.
I do not know the My Little Pony
Lore.
at all,
But for our friendship, we will
and
get
I am
over this.
proud to say so. That is not an area of geek card that I have endeavored to get stamped. Moisha,
The stamp for that part is actually very, very cute.
rainbow.
It depends on the person.
Okay.
I've been talking to people over breakfast, trying to find out a little bit of information about parts to the north where we're headed next. And I mentioned that we had come from Port Belkoff and that Belkoff was overrun with Mordredians and that they seemed to be hot on our trail, though not actually following us in particular as far as I could tell. But headed in this general direction, and that seems to have been new information to the people I was speaking with, and now all of a sudden there's a big meeting at noon and I'm supposed to be the one to tell people about the Mordredians.
Thanks, Captain Buzzkill.
I'm hoping to make Karn and
You know who the party
Nara
pooper
talk
is.
about it.
Yeah, we know who the party pooper is.
Honestly, she's not a bard.
Okay, so you're dreading this meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or are you more dreading this meeting, though?
Oh. Talk.
I can't follow that.
You can and you will.
Talk was catfished by an imp pretending to be a leprechaun and trying to get him to make a
Okay,
deal.
this is a colloquialism I've heard used before, but I don't actually know what the term means.
It's when you when you do online dating, pretending to be someone completely different than you are, just to mess with someone or to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'd heard it
Call
somewhere
them
before, but I didn't recall. Thank you for
I think it's
reminding.
specifically more for trying to.
It's like fishing with email, but more romantic.
Anyway, he managed to, I think the word weasel out of it, I think is appropriate.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that was definitely.
Which I think, for what you were dealing with, is completely appropriate.
Yes, it was a completely legitimate weaseling.
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes
Nothing to be ashamed of.
Sometimes weasels gotta wheeze.
But only when
Swiper,
they're
no
asthmatic.
swiping.
And wizards got a whiz. What?
Oh yeah.
Well, not out in public.
Dare you enter my magical realm?
Okay. So
A
what were
wizard never whizzes late or early.
you? Yeah. They was precisely what they mean too. Okay, let's keep it. We're going awry here.
What have you been drinking? All right.
Anyway, and then he just instinctively accepted a bowl full of stuff that was passed to him because he was reeling from that traumatic experience in multiple.
First claustrophobia, then pretty much.
He might have developed a new phobia out of that.
Impophobia.
Well, there's the acrophobia because he was at the top of a tall tree and
a couple hundred feet.
Leprophobia.
Leprophobia, not leperphobia. Leprophobia. Okay.
Whatever, and he found someone, a halfling, to bond with, and
Do you remember her name?
No.
Fiona Applehill.
I wrote it down, but I was at home, and
Fiona
I didn't bring the
Applehill.
piece of paper that I had with me then, apparently. Fiona. That's it. Fiona.
Applehill, yep.
Yeah. He needed someone to open up to after being forced to open up against his will with someone that was going to potentially.
Which playing that session, so I've been working on, because we do all our research stuff, working on the optimal introductory adventure and everything. And one of the things, which then has led to reviving the game system I've been working on forever, the ARPG system, and trying to figure out, an optimal system. And in the optional rules, adding trauma points, which are different. Sand, it's close to sand, but sand in the way Cthulhu does it, which you guys have, is pretty broad. You can have all kinds of insanity issues that aren't really related to trauma. It's supposed to kind of represent trauma, but the way they do it is too broad. You don't get certain types of disorders that are listed from straight trauma. Mm-hmm. You do get PTSD, and if you have a genetic propensity for certain things that might be activated, but there are a lot of disorders listed that really aren't trauma-induced disorders that can happen with SAN. So I'm trying to have a more psychologically accurate version of that with trauma points, because the research is showing you don't get more resistant to the more trauma you have, which is what they used to think. It's a cumulative effect. What's that?
Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger or cripples you forever.
Yes. Yeah, so they used to think that the more you expose people to, like soldiers and such, to trauma, the more they were desensitized to it, the more they can handle. But what they found is, about a third of the people who are exposed to trauma will develop PTSD typically. But the other 2/3 don't in that initial trauma. However, if you keep exposing people to trauma again and again and again, sooner or later everyone will develop PTSD. If you keep even the most resilient personality types, sooner or later you will cross a threshold of tolerance.
And then of course
that
everybody
the most unethical double-blind trial.
And of course everybody has their own limitations and
and there's genetic propensity and everything, and resilient. All there's so many variables.
Everybody responds.
But that's the newer. It's changed in the last 30 years considerably. So anyway, when you were saying that, I was like, we need some sort of trauma points, because the SAN points are when you're exposed to horrors, right? And that's when you can lose sanity, and then we roll for a sanity check, etc. That's different than a trauma check.
When you're exposed to all the knowledge of the universe simultaneously.
Yes, or some of the stuff that you're about to run into in the next few episodes.
That mortal brains are not designed to be able to comprehend.
Right. So anyway, that was all. The only reason I want to bring that up was because when you were doing that, I went, that we need to take that into account, because a lot of game systems don't take that into account, and it's kind of important for and this isn't. We don't. This isn't a theory episode on Sundays, but we interject these concepts and such into our games as we go. So anyway, you were sharing with her, and then come in the morning, talk went off to
meet with potentially an
to train.
illusionist.
Yes. Right out in the swamp.
May have been allowed to
Yes.
make a home here amongst the druids, who lives in the middle of a swamp and is apparently
Do you remember the name?
a bug person. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it.
Okay.
At home.
Tathar the Magnificent,
Tathar the Magnificent.
who is described as a Thrycreen, which your character does not know what that is.
It was explained.
It was explained as, imagine a giant upright praying mantis.
Yeah.
Kind of. About 7 feet tall.
One step from being a Cthulhu monster in the
And they are famous for, eating the heads off of humanoids and such.
Formerly.
Formerly humanoids, yes, they were.
That's what the guard said was that they changed their diet.
They have a treaty.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they change their diet.
Well,
They have a treaty.
that was the exact wording that he used.
Okay.
Now the guard might be
Yes.
wrong.
Yes. Okay.
But
Okay. All right.
that was the exact wording
Yes.
that the person that told Talk used.
Okay.
And so he's just preparing himself because he knows a dragonborn, so
Yeah.
he's preparing himself, kind of just thinking, okay,
Right.
we like
So,
dragonborn, but
so you
above.
found this little swamp thing. It's a big mud wattle type dome shaped construction. You came up to the door. You went in,
Got the flashing
or the
neon
entryway. Yeah, it did. Right. It had a whole thing that said Tathar the Magnificent right overhead in illusion. I mean, it was an illusion, magic. And you went in, and it was this long hallway, much longer than it should have been for the size of the building. And you walked all the way down the lit, it lit up for you. You walked down, and then you came up to a big bound
He
door.
just wishes that he had a Tin Man and a lion to link arms
Yes.
with as he's going up this long path.
Courage! All right. So, and you were at that door, and that's where we left you, right, when we stopped the show. And Farhad.
In the evening before, when the festivities were happening, Farhad was fully engaged in all of the festivities.
Yes.
Then the morning came. He did his worship of Cord right off the bat. Then went and bathed himself. And then there was the whole kerfuffle of Janera's missing. Oh no! And Karn was like, oh no! Janera's missing. I'm Lord Karn. What's going to happen? Gather, let's save her. And Farhad thought to himself, well, I'll go along just in case they need my help, because I am always helpful and thoughtful. And so he followed along as they went to help, only to find Janera completely satisfied, happy, and enjoying herself amongst the company of some wonderfully kind and interesting druids. At which point, Moisha let slip that he had been babbling to everyone about the fact the world was ending and the Mordredians were coming to murder everyone and burn down the forest. At which point the party was pretty much over.
Spoil sport.
Kill.
Thank you for your very colorful interpretation there, Joe, of Farhad's perception of what happened.
You are welcome.
That's very much appreciated. And that's what we're hoping you'll do, is through your character's eyes, describe what your character saw. Farhad has an interesting, viewpoint on it. Yeah, especially when it comes to Karn. All right, Dan. So I notice you have the Lindale Elenalase image up.
Mm-hmm.
Could you please just take the headshot part with his hat and stick that down, by John's section here, below him? Just shrink that down and, crop it and just stick it there.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay, and then in its place, could you have the Druid's Gate image that used to be up there?
Okay.
Remember that sketch that we had? Somewhere? You should have it. Okay, thank you. All right.
Gotta have the establishing shot, otherwise nobody understands what's going on in the next scene.
Right. So it's coming up to noon. Moisha was waiting here as the druids were starting to gather, right?
No, Moisha is still coming back with
With the others, right. So you were all heading there to where the druids were going to
Yeah.
meet near the altar.
But Moisha is not going on his own.
Okay, he's
To
with
be
Karn and
disposed.
Janera and Farhad.
Yeah.
And Torin, you're in the stables. Lindalay,
Was in the middle of the town playing his thing.
it's not a town. It's not really a town.
The gathering of woodland
Okay,
people.
near the feast area?
Yes.
Okay,
Festival grounds.
yeah.
The middle of the playa.
Yeah.
And you were in the swamps at the door. And, okay, just making sure. And then River was coming back to this group
Looking
after
for,
trying to find, not knowing exactly what the person looks like.
other than a streak of black in his hair, or is it a streak of gray in his hair?
Gray, I think.
Streak of gray, yeah.
So looking for a needle in a stack of needles.
And for that, we're just going to say that she quickly finds the person since she's not here to roleplay that through. She will stick around for this meeting with the druids that's about to happen, but then she's going to go take off to that tree and get her training done so she can level up in her regenism and all of that. So
She's going to attack that tree. Horror!
She should really start with like just some boards or something, or cinder
well,
blocks.
he's focusing on the martial arts, but she's there to level up her Wujen abilities, which is, the martial arts are just a small part of. So, which very few of you have actually seen anything she can do. Very few of you have seen.
No.
Did you? Okay.
She gets these
So
spells.
Torin, you fed and groomed the I almost said steeds, but that doesn't apply to all of them.
Yes. So I'm going to try my hardest on the sitting and listening.
Okay, so you can go back and do you know about the druid meeting thing, or oh, listening to the animals?
Yes.
Ah,
So Torin's going to try and sit and not do anything or say anything for 20 minutes.
20.
roll a system shock.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
With
I'm kidding.
disadvantage.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
System shock with disadvantage.
What's your defense against silence?
Oh, Andy.
What?
Your defense against awkward
Those
silence.
dice over there for our Andrew that were...
Oh yes. Get those back to him. Yes.
Yeah, continue borrowing them.
Okay then. Alright. Aha! I survived my system shock.
He might have to make a couple wisdom saving throws or constitution saving throws, something to get him to survive 20 minutes.
I like saving throw against awkward silence.
2 on my wisdom.
That'd
Okay.
be probably the petrified.
But after you do it, you don't hear anything. They, first they're looking at you and then get bored and go munch. And you stick it out the full amount of time, and then you have to get up and run around to just let out all that pent up energy.
Ah!
Gotta shake your sillies out.
How do they do it? They're not talking to me. How can you listen to them if you're not talking to them so they can answer you? That doesn't even make sense.
All right. So you, Karn, Dranera, Farhad, all come walking back to the altar feast area. You see the druids slowly starting to gather as it's getting near noon. What do you do? Moisha.
Moisha is contemplating what
Okay.
he does.
Your navel?
Pretty much. Karn,
Yes.
I think it makes more sense for you to explain things.
You're going to make the GM just talk to himself the whole time. Thank you very much.
Hey, you get more
Well, what do you
experience
mean?
points that way.
Well, about the Mordredians. And I know it's bad, but I don't remember all the details that they should know. I'm
You're the one who
surprised
brought it up. It's your party that experienced all this before you came to us.
Talking a lot.
Moisha, don't be
Oh,
shy.
he's here.
Friends, druids, everyone, I'm sure you heard the rumors. My friend Moisha.
So everybody's-
You want.
Yeah, but the problem is that Katie doesn't have a memory.
So as Farhad does that, all of the partying people around all stop what they're doing and turn and stare at Farhad and Moisha and the rest of you, looking
First
expectantly.
of all, thank you for inviting us to your festivities. It is a wonderful time. You have a beautiful life here, the forest, the desert, the swamp. Everything is so grand. And now, Moisha would like to tell you about the doom that is marching upon you.
Oh no. Oh no.
So now everybody's staring at you. Quietly, expectantly. Children, elderly, everyone in between.
Kids
Couple
in there
animals.
to this
Be
meeting.
on your guard. The more
Well, it's
ready
the
is
feast
becoming.
area and all that too, so.
They've taken Burt Balkoff. They were on the King's Road.
You
They were
hear
on the Queen's
intaking
Road.
breaths as you describe this.
They're coming. I don't know what to do about it.
Oh my goodness, can you believe this?
I don't know how fast they're coming. But be warned. Prepare your
Don't sell them
defenses.
short, Moisha. They've also taken Minton. They've taken, what's that town of yours, Con? The one they burned to the ground.
I don't know which one you're referring to there.
Where we
Like
got
Metro.
Tamara.
Oh, Kasarnik.
Kasarnik, yeah.
Yeah, Kasarnik.
Okay.
Yeah, Kasarnik.
Oh,
Oh,
it's literally Carnstown.
No,
Kansar.
no, Kasarnik. Not even close.
Yeah. So I suggest that you be careful and fortify your defenses.
So
We've
there's a
been on the
lot of
run.
murmuring going on.
Thank you for taking us in. I don't know that we would have survived if you hadn't given us shelter and sustenance.
Everybody looks at you quietly.
especially not with the barrier on the Great Road being weakened and some of the monstrous creatures being able to cross back and forth across the road.
More drawn intake breaths of shock.
There was some sort of patchwork monster man who were like camping on the wrong side. Tell them all about it, Moisha.
They seemed nice.
Yes, they're very nice.
Patchwork monsters. They seem nice.
Definitely no monstrous and evil, but kind.
One of them maybe even brushed their teeth.
Really friendly, hideous abomination.
That's about the size of it.
Okay, one of the elderly druids, his long beard to his knees, stands up and comes up to you and looks at you with kindly eyes. And I understand this was difficult for you, Moisha.
Yes, sir.
Now get out.
The rest of you, go back to what you were doing. There is no immediate danger. They're nowhere near here. We're fine. We're safe. They're not getting through the gate. We're going to have a further conversation here with them to get the latest information. But all will be well. Continue with the festivities. Please, the four of you, come this way. Takes you over towards the altar area. You also know some of the Fae woke up for a little bit of this too, and then after you started talking, kind of rolled over and went back to sleep.
Okay.
So he goes over to the
Not our
altar.
world.
So he turns back to you and so when did you last see a Mordredian soldier?
I think it was when we were crossing the Queen's Road. But I've lost.
You're not.
I've lost track of what has happened when.
So we have Karn, Dranera, Farhad, and Moisha here. Are you here too?
I was going to ask that because after 20 minutes, if I come back to the feast area, is that during this or did I miss that 20 minutes?
You can be here fine.
Okay.
Okay, so you're here as well. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm gone, just trying to help.
And River's gone.
The
Talk is gone.
The characters.
I know, but
I know.
it's better to let the group that's here do that. So go ahead.
I don't have a good sense of time. The last time I was afraid of them, significantly afraid of them, was terrifying. It feels like yesterday, but the last time I can remember seeing a group of them was when we were on the Queen's Road. Farhad, Torin, when did we really see them last?
It was probably when we had that ambush up on the road heading north here.
South.
Remember?
Yeah, you were heading north, yeah.
Yeah.
But
We'd already got a car. And
you were...
That wasn't the Queen's Road?
No, that's the Great East Road.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Great East
You don't
Road.
bring-
I've got the
North
road,
of the Queen's Road.
I've got my roads wrong.
Okay.
Oh,
and
no.
that was 5 days ago?
We killed
Give
a
it
few
to-
dozen of them at that point,
Dozen.
and then we looted the bodies and took their weapons, which were somehow being magically tracked by a cat. So they know we've been heading this direction. Just a day's ride ago, we left those out in the forest full of flaming monsters.
Oh, it was 2 days ago. 2 days ago.
Ah, yes. I haven't slept.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
about 2 days ago is when that elf told us about the weapons.
Yes, a
Yeah.
very helpful wood elf fellow. He didn't give us his name, and he left quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, seemed kind of grateful to save his life. Just runs off on you. Yeah.
But we did divest ourselves of all of the Modredian elements that we had picked up.
That is very good, because you should know, from what we understand, they do indeed track most of their soldiers with various tokens.
Could they be tracking Leon still?
That's a horse. No. More horse.
It,
Which is the
if
gear
you
off.
kept its gear, the key to look for is enchanted silver.
No, we took that off because we didn't want to be like, well, there's some Mordred people that shoot them with arrows, and so we took that off.
As long as there's no enchanted silver left. Again, they have to actively want to track you.
Oh, okay.
It's not an automatic thing that all Mordredians know where all the other Mordredians are. But if they, for example, Morgana Le Fay, if she wants to have an update for her son, Mordred, on where their forces are in the world, she has the ability through these enchantments to basically know where every one of their minions are throughout the world through this enchantment.
That's a lot of
You
money.
When
said
she
know a lot
exerts
about
her
this.
effort, we have had to make sure our protections are strong against her. She has tried to scry into here many times.
Oh, Scrad, that's where you can like look at something really far off without a looking glass, right?
You are correct, young one.
Oh, wow.
And she is a great danger, and hopefully you have not gained her personal attention.
Wait, so that Scrad, if we was just anywhere, she would just look in on us and be like, well, yeah, there they are.
Oh yes, of course, she can, if she knows, if she has a personal object, or knows someone personally who has a piece of their body, like their hair or some other, or a fingernail or their teeth, then she can find them anywhere and across multiple worlds, and potentially do harm to them if she binds them.
Multiple worlds. This is the world.
Did you not see the portals last night to the Fae, the land of the Fae?
Yeah.
It's one of many, many, perhaps infinite worlds that are around us at all times.
That doesn't sound good.
It is neither good nor bad, it just simply is.
It sounds scary.
Well, it can be overwhelming, but it is part of the balance of our nature. We'll have, as the sun goes down tonight, we'll have yet another opening of the portals for the Fae to continue the celebration. This time they will be bringing the party to us. We welcomed them to ours and celebrated and gave thanks. Now they'll be bringing their gifts and throwing their party for us tonight.
But we don't go through those.
No. Well, be careful. Many of them will try to entice you to do so.
And what happens if we go?
You might never come back. You might not want to come back. Depends on where you go. Some places are bliss, and other places you might consider a horror.
Well, that's certainly terrifying.
So, yes, but they will be bringing their gifts to us, and this is just part of the tradition.
Wait, we're going to get gifts from the Fae?
Yes. Yes. They can be quite simple and quite wondrous, and often the ones that seem simple are the greatest, and often the ones that seem wondrous are the most wrought with unexpected surprises.
Oh, it's just like when you're like, I wish for gold, and then a whole pile of gold just falls on you from the sky or something? Kind of one of those things?
You have the general gist of it, yes, lad.
Oh.
Can I change the subject?
But of course.
My commitment is to help my group of friends here find the Oracle.
You're looking for the Oracle.
We need to find the Oracle. We need...
This is from the Isle of Grekos.
Yes.
Well, she's no longer there. She has not been at the Isle. She left. She knew before the Isle fell to Mordred to leave.
How'd you know that? Well, we've been told that she's up in the north.
I've heard some stories to that effect.
But this adventure has been much more adventurous than I was quite counting on. What horrors might we encounter by the time we can track her down? Can you give us directions?
He leans towards you with kindly eyes and... Oh, Moisha, are you sure you want to know such things?
I would rather be prepared.
You do seem a kind lad, and it does burden my heart to see how heavy you're feeling. What you've experienced so far is but a tiny taste of what you have ahead of you.
I've given my word. I must see it through.
I don't know. I am not a seer. I can't tell you exactly, but I do know the Infernium is weakening rapidly to the north of here. And there is a war going on, which I think you've already heard, between the North Ronders, the Centaurs, the Wood Elves, and all the folk up there
Yes.
for resources. You'll be walking into a war zone.
How can we protect ourselves?
Perhaps the greatest way is if you can bring peace with you. If you can stop the war, that might give you the safest passage. At least bring a temporary halt to it. You would at least be neutral parties. Although he looks over at Karn at this point. Although you, and he looks at Karn, might not be so neutral. Karn just looks at him, engages eye contact with him sternly, but gives a slight nod.
Oh, he's right. He's definitely not neutral.
But perhaps what these people need may be some arbitrators, some moderators who are not going to be biased towards any one group or the other. Looking around at each of you. With the exception of Sir Khan here, perhaps they might be willing... The biggest problem, they have not listened to us because they feel that, as though we try to stay in the center of balance, they feel that we're too associated with the kingdom to the south, and thus the alliance with the North Rons.
Farhad is a good contract negotiator.
Are you, Farhad?
Sorry, I can't hear Katie. You'll have to talk.
Oh, you might want to wear Lillian's mic then. Make sure you turn it on.
Yeah, but I wanted to...
It doesn't clip that way.
How does it clip?
It's cool.
Oh. I don't know how to put this on.
Yeah, like that.
Thanks.
Really, you probably hook it on your sweater. Yeah, but don't turn it on until you've got it on, because otherwise it'll make a ton of noise for everybody.
If you turn it on after midnight.
insert joke about phrasing there.
Okay. Does this help?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Okay. Farhad is a good contract negotiator. He might be able to help.
Farhad, is this true?
Well, I do a lot more contract enforcing than contract negotiating, but I can write a contract, I can read a contract, and I can make sure that all parties involved have a meeting of the minds.
Well, perhaps... We know the Wood Elves do not trust anyone outside of their tribe. They don't even trust other Wood Elves. But they are least trusting of all of humans, and a little more trusting of other humanoids that they feel maybe understand some of their challenges with the humans. So perhaps between you and Dranera being... Well, you being half-elf might have the closest chance. And both of you being Iridian, yes? Dranera nods.
Yeah.
You're going to be outside of the Regnum Sapientium influence from their perspective. And perhaps you being from Dwarven background. And do you not also have a gnome in your kind?
We do.
And another who's from far lands from the east, yes?
River indeed is from far to the east.
So perhaps keeping Karn and... Sorry, young lad, what was your name?
Oh, I'm Torin.
Keeping the humans that are local out of the conversation, they might be open to you helping them sit down and talk to each other to negotiate something.
You mean we might actually get a bonus for having a diverse party?
But do you're not here, so yeah.
I know. I was,
Yes, yeah. So
we just had to.
yes. Well, I told you while you were in Regnum Sapientium,
Yeah,
huge racism against non-humans. You're now leaving that area. Yes. Were you raising? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. So the problem is they are daily fighting, and the power they're wielding is damaging the barrier. And we're doing all we can, but they are weakening it at the crossroads greatly.
Are they wielding some unnatural power or some...
No, but they have brought in, all sides have brought in their wizards and their clerics and such, and are fighting each other magically and in force, and it is causing significant damage. And we've pled with them to stop, or at least move the battle away from the crossroads. It's too close to the barrier. But they're not listening, because that is the pivot point for their disagreement. So perhaps a neutral group they might be willing to sit down with, and you could help moderate them. I don't know how experienced you are. You seem all fairly young. But at least you might be considered neutral parties, that they might sit down and talk.
Huh. Man, only we need some sort of old wise and like high elf or something, those good words. That'd be nice.
He was looking over at you, John. But he's over playing his fiddle over the east area.
Do you have any information or any way that we might be able to get an introduction to the Wood Elves or to the Centaurs or to the Northrons?
I could, as one of the High Druids, I could give you a scroll that says, but it might hurt you. But we could give you something that does say we entrust you, as much as we, can be. Something that says to listen to what you have to say.
Given what I've heard, mostly what I want is something that says, let us talk before you kill us.
Unless you're a centaur or a Northron, he looks at Karn, or a Wood Elf, or any of their allies, you'll probably be okay.
Just like in my hometown. No one ever gets murdered except for by people they know.
Who is that?
Oh, Shane.
Okay. We'll have to think about that. So, yeah, I'll have to think about that one.
Spend your hero
Papa
points,
Voodoo. Yeah, but careful what you ask for. So,
You might get a giant pile of gold dropped on your head.
yes.
1,000 feet up.
Or transformed into a reverse centaur.
Yeah, but we could perhaps
Bojack Horseman?
let me think about that. I'll have to meditate on that for a bit to see what would be wisest. Yes, I'll have to think about that.
Fair enough.
But perhaps that is the best chance, because as it is a war zone, and your only other option would be to cut through the Infernium itself to go around it.
That's too scary.
Or try to go around to the west, to the north, and through the ice, the great moving ice. And then through the Jotunheim, the 100-foot-plus giants that like to eat humanoids for snacks.
I'm just a small snack. Talk is even less of a snack.
So your best chance, I think, is if you can get them to just talk to each other, and even if you have to just slip through while they're talking, I hate to suggest such a thing, but that's your best chance. You're not going to be able to get through if you're trying. From what we hear of the Cirrus, she is over the pass that you'll need to take through the Wood Elves' realm to the east, over the Dragon Spine. So you would have to get their permission, or else have to traverse the Infernium itself, the heart of the Infernium, which I would not even send our kind through, let alone your young folk.
Thank you.
But you're not going anywhere for a few days, so let not your heart be burdened. Lighten your load. You're safe for now. Enjoy all we have here. Set aside your worries for a few days at least. There's nothing you can do for a few days, so enjoy being here now.
I'll try.
And if you need anything from us, if we can, we'll help you. So as you prepare for your journey, let us know. We are simple folk of simple means, but if there is something we can do to help you along your way, do let us know.
If there's any way you can help us protect ourselves. I don't know if you have a ward or something that...
Well, the problem is if we gave you anything too powerful that was like that, it might make it easier to find you by the
That
enemy
would be
forces.
bad.
Magical wards such as that, moving around, can often help others who are sensitive to such things track you quite well.
That would be bad. Thank you for telling me.
But there might be other ways. If you think of things, let us know. Is there anything else we need to know? So you said it was 2 days ago that you... Sorry, 5 days ago that you had that ambush, you said?
Oh yeah, so what was happening is that we found this space of campfire. It's in a little cul-de-sac, and we had some water and a cave. Anyways, we're up there, and sure enough, we had fire and all the smoke up in the air because we're cooking breakfast.
We don't need all the details, lad. Just very short summary.
Yeah, so it was eight fellers on horses came riding from the north back down to the south, and they saw that we was camping out there, and there's more Dradians, and they attacked us, and we smote all but one of them. He done run off back south. And we just, we got to chase him, or we just head north. And we decided to head north.
Okay, then. Do you know if you... and you say, did any get away?
Oh, yeah, one.
One did get away.
One, yeah, he took off and ran, was on his horse. And
was he able to identify you? Your lot?
I mean, I'm sure he saw a couple of us. But, I mean, I don't think they knows who we are.
Joe?
They would have had a clear view of river, because river was down there.
Right.
And whether they had a clear view of Moisha or Farhad from their sniping positions is unlikely.
Okay.
I think anyone who saw me was dead. or anyone who saw Todd. And I don't think any of them got to Connor Gennaro.
Okay.
No, Khan didn't fight. He was hiding out by the fire the whole time.
Oh yeah, then there's that little monkey keeps following us.
What do you mean, little monkey?
Oh, it's this little black little monkey thing that rattles through your bag.
He looks over at a
steals
couple
stuff.
of the other elderly wizards. You know of this monkey?
Oh yeah, he bit me. Still got a mark on me.
It's a were-monkey.
That's interesting.
Better than a were turtle.
We had such a creature come through here a few days ago.
It's right ahead of
Behind
us.
you.
Gotta get ahead of us.
How's it keep? I don't understand. It's a flying monkey. Keeps following us, I tell you. See, I ain't crazy.
But it arrived here
If he got
before
ahead of
you.
us, perhaps we're following him.
But we left him back at that, because he was stealing stuff from us, and we left him there, and we was on horseback the whole time. How does that even work?
He's very fast.
Oh, well, it's a magic monkey. Like how that magic owl, that old guy, well, next to the tree with the water.
It was very strange to find one of its kind up here, but it found our more jungle-like areas and seemed to be comfortable there.
So it's still here?
Looks at one of the others, and you see one of the druids nod.
Torrid,
Yeah?
we're not picking up a monkey.
I don't want to pick up a monkey. I want to, he's an honorable me for
I tell you what.
Them's good eating.
Especially the birds.
Oh, let's see. So I have take a quick question. I have a question here from one of the audience members about what it would cost to do something,
A lot.
and it's a little outside of the normal scope. So I'm trying to take a look at which level would be relevant to that significant.
Well, if it involves making any of us a god, I vote for me.
I will change Talk's accent for 1,000.
Oh, you know what? I see a perfect description. Look at 15,000 hero points, and it says specifically that would make sense. That would totally make sense to that request.
That's a lot of hero points. That sounds fairly drastic.
It's kind of the other direction, but it's directly related
It only hurts
to what's being asked. Does that make sense,
Then
Dan?
it gets worse.
I'm checking right now.
All right. And let me know what you think,
What's
Papa
going
Voodoo.
on?
It's not going to be cheap because of the multiplanar thing.
Multiplane. And then the
like
elder
lasagna.
god comes through the
So
portal.
it's a bit up there.
And tentacle mind plays us.
But that's a pretty big ask
Yeah.
because that has ripple effects through the multiverse.
Oh boy.
We're gonna have a cameo.
Not as big as the ones that Drake did, but all right.
Strawberry.
What do you think of that, Dan? Think
Yeah.
that's about right?
Yeah.
Okay, so point that out to Papa Voodoo.
I let him know.
Yeah, well, then hopefully he's watching the stream.
So, you know,
Well, he's in
Eddie's
chat,
in
so.
Okay.
Eddie's in the space-time continuum.
Yeah, many, multiple.
Is he?
All right.
Don't be afraid.
So, is there anything else we should know about? Any other strange or disturbing experiences you had on your journey that we should know
I got turned
about?
into a fish twice.
Indeed.
I got better though. Turn me down watchtop. Well, see, the first time was because we was at this tree, which I guess is a tree of life. I guess there's trees of life. And anyways,
All the old druids look very interested when you
and
say
so
that.
if you bathe in the water and drink it, you
Where
turn
was
into a fish.
this?
Oh, that was about north. Let's see here. We was traveling about a week north of Balcob, off a little eastish.
They all look at each other, mystified.
Yeah.
West of the East Road, south of the Queens Road.
You mystified the mystics?
Yeah. There's this old guy. What's his name? Real loony fellow. Kind of like an
Albie.
owl. Albie, that's it.
They look amazed. You came across Albie.
Yeah.
He saved us from the plague.
Oh, yeah.
Don't say that.
We thought he was long gone.
I mean, he's probably not much there left, but,
Is he the one they named Albion from?
He is ancient.
I mean, yeah, he's old. I mean,
Much more than old. Ancient.
like,
Like 60?
If this is the
Like
place
great
from legend, from lore, it predates any civilization in these lands.
huh.
Which, by the way, doesn't go back that far. Remember, these were wild lands until the High Elves came in and civilized all the primitives out here and such.
Civilized.
Yes. Yeah, in the Roman
War was
way.
only 500 years ago.
Yeah. So, but still, that's,
Well, I don't know about that, but you can't cook for worth a darn, that's for certain. And he has magic fish to talk to you, and go figure. And
This is very interesting.
yeah.
But you said twice.
Oh yeah. See, I got killed or something. Who was coming up here by a big old cat, and I guess I was dead. And they put some of the water on me, and I turned into a fish again, and was no longer dead. So yeah, there's that.
You were reincarnated as a fish.
I don't believe it sounds smells fishy.
I mean,
That word's too big.
processing that word for a bit. Maybe.
You were dead in your human form and brought back to life in a fish form.
Yeah, that sums it up.
That would be reincarnation.
Oh.
But how did you... Are you in a different human form now than you were before?
No, seems the same.
Interesting.
Wait, I mean, is it common that you don't come back as we normally are?
For reincarnation, you almost never do.
Then wait, how do you know you come back if you don't look the same? Wouldn't you be someone
Your
else?
own awareness comes into it. Often you don't know.
So then are you really alive again, or isn't that just someone else at that point?
Well, we could have a long conversation on this topic.
And many people do.
But let's just store that for now, and we can talk more about that later if
They
you
are
would like,
called
lad.
college students.
So,
Beatniks.
anything else that we should know about that was strange along the road? You've told us about the mongrel folk.
Oh, well, there's
What else have
There
you
was the
seen?
six-legged cat. He was a very big
That
cat.
sounds like one of the creatures from the Wild Woods.
He's what killed Thorin.
Yeah. Oh, there's some cavemen.
All right.
The
Yes.
Mostradians, they have some sort of death lightning cannon of fire, some sort of sky artillery.
I still think it's
That would be
dragons.
Morgana's wizards and sorceresses.
Is there any way to protect or counteract it?
With other wizards and sorceresses. And
Are you talking about the
Parks.
fire emu?
No. I'm talking about the explosions coming out of the night sky and decimating towns.
Oh God, I
and wiping
forgot
out
about
entire
that.
military units.
I forgot
Or
about
huge
that.
military units, yeah.
There are
With a
some
mushroom
things
cloud.
too horrible to remember.
They had a huge military unit. Completely destroyed.
There are some things too
Well, I mean,
horrible
not
to
completely. That's
remember.
where we got adopted from. He's doing
She's
all right.
clearly been saving her power. If she's unleashing that much now, it's going to cost her.
If only we had a wizard.
From what we understand, they have not been able to break past the Queen's Road, if what you say is true, but our information is out of date. Do you know if they made it to Camelot or not?
We do not know.
What about the the barrier to the Central Pass?
I don't know.
Do you know if they took the keep there? Do you not know?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
Central Pass.
Okay. It would have been just south of Kasarnik. The Queen's Road passes
Oh.
over. There's a military outpost there.
Well,
Protecting
we
the
saw
pass.
smoke down south when we got to Kasarnak, so, I mean, it probably...
But you don't know the fate exactly.
Yeah, no.
We'll have to look into it then.
But every other town in me is just... And there wasn't much left after that, so...
Some of us have been wondering, you see a couple of them looking at him sternly, and one or two shaking their heads like don't say it kind of look. Some of us have been wondering if this trouble up north is constructed. Because if they were not warring, they're all technically allies of Regnum Sapientium and should be coming to their aid now, in their greatest time of need.
Oh, that'd be real helpful. I mean,
But instead they're fighting amongst each others, over squabbling over tidbits of land, when there's far greater concerns afoot.
We need that, and Farhad is just eyeballing Karn the whole time, that many times people who should be allies treat each other like enemies. Maybe poisoning or kidnapping or torturing people who have just come to help them. We certainly understand how easy it is for people of goodwill to be corrupted.
But he's not bitter.
He's not giving us the slightest.
City versus field trip.
So how long before Karn's honor just can't hold him back? I wonder. I mean, what's
There's only one thing holding him back.
Are we gonna
Dranera.
yeah.
That's
Never
the only
ever
thing.
falls asleep. He's dead.
Well, he would never. I mean, he would never it would
Hey,
be.
no
it would
witnesses.
Be, it would, he is a knight. It would be very public. So, but anyway, now that might not be
It'd be a very public execution.
Farhad's approach, but if Karn were to do something, it would be very open. Karn is not hugely complicated.
Flaming sword versus face.
So is there anything else we should know about?
There's a fish cord down south. I guess you already know about them, though. They says
Yes, we welcome them. They
nice bunch
seem
of fellas.
they seem good folk. Indeed. And we understand both you, Farhad, and you, Torin, have become followers.
Oh yeah,
of
we're
Cord.
priests. Yeah, priests of Cord. That's us. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Well, good. It is good for you to have some direction there.
Does Cord answer your prayers?
Oh, he makes us stronger, and I'm pretty certain I saw something of him when I was dead. I mean, there was just this smell of sweat, which is, I guess, part of what Cord is, and this feeling that I had to go back and count more sets.
Not Godsmack.
So,
So I like to think that he had a hand in, making sure that.
is there anything
my
else
family
any of you
came
can
back.
think of that you came across that we should know about?
Let's see here. There's
I'm looking at all of you.
Well, there's lots of things that are the monsters supposed to be able to get on the road?
Alas, we have been trying. Originally, the barrier kept all the creatures away from the road at least a mile away.
Wow.
When it was put together with the help of the High Elves and ours and all the great forces of these lands came together to create the barrier, it was a mile or more away from the East Road. Over time, that barrier has weakened, and it takes a great number of us to shore up the magic as it fades over time. What we did not think about, all these great minds and wizards and druids and all of us, that we did not take into account the best laid plans of all, is some of the mists. You've heard the tales of the mists?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Yes. Well, some of the mists are in and around the dragon spine.
Uh-oh.
And in creating the barrier, we have caused some creatures to wander into the mists, while other creatures have wandered out of the mists. And apparently they've started to be able to map the pathways through, much as your sailors have and the Grey Elves have with some of the other mists. They've found the safe ways through. And it's, for some reason, the forces have been growing on the other side. And some of these forces are intelligent and powerful and magical and from planes of very different lands.
How do we stay safe from the mist when we go look for the oracle?
Avoid them as much as you can. Unless you have a navigator like one of the Grey Elves, avoid the mists at all
But
costs.
how do they do that? How do you go in there and just not, fall off the face of the earth or
You
whatever?
have to know the ways.
Well, how do
If
you
you
know the
don't
way?
know, it is just like a sailor knowing how to navigate on the open oceans.
Is there someone who could navigate for us?
The rare Grey Elves are naturally attuned and are the greatest guides, but they are rare and difficult to find.
That
There are
doesn't
other
help.
races who have, here and there, guides through specific parts of the mists. You have sailor navigators who know their way through certain trade routes, and some of the mists through the dragon spine in other locations. But if you stick to the main roads, you're usually safe. Those have been designed intentionally to stay away from the mists.
Okay.
But if you go off the main roads, you run the risk of being lost forever in the mists.
That doesn't sound good.
Though some have come back, reporting strange and different lands. Some lands very similar to the ones, but slightly different. And others radically, completely different, where the laws of the lands of magic and physical laws are all completely different. Up is down and down is up. Many different accounts.
That's concerning.
What's that? So, anything else you can recall along your ways? We need this information.
There's a big pile of poop. I don't know if that's special to you, none. It's about the size of that
What do you
building over
mean?
there, and I guess it burns if you get into it, like it's filled with fire. But lots of things seem to be filled with fire over in the Infernium. I guess
There
that's
was
just
a
trend.
giant lizard-like animal, like a giraffe, but 5 times bigger. It's probably from that thing.
The barrier is getting weaker and weaker far faster than expected. There seems to be forces trying to break down the barrier
Oh, and
now.
there's that thing that got stuck in the woods that you and Karn helped out and found Farhad. I guess it was stuck or something.
He's talking
Was I
to you,
here for that?
Farhad.
Yeah, this would be in reference to the thing that had snow stuck in a log, and you got the magic map. That
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Yes, there was some kind of,
And that was on the west side of the road,
yeah,
right?
some small humanoid creature.
Oh, was it
like
east
a-
side?
it'd be
Oh, it
east
was
side.
east side. Okay, all right, yeah.
What was he?
Like a tree man
yeah.
with a big nose.
And he gave me this cool map, but it only works sometimes.
Can you describe the creature?
He had a very big nose. He's small and blocky. His nose was stuck in a tree.
When you say the big nose, do you mean holds out like just a couple of fingers? I don't know if you can see this on the camera. Like that, you mean? Or do you mean
No,
like
much big.
a couple
Like a
of
gnome?
feet?
Big enough it could run a man through.
Was it covered in old lichen and moss?
Indeed.
Interesting. By the way, that is an old woman of sorts. Interesting. And you say it gave you a map?
Yes.
You
This one here.
Okay. Protect that. That is a rare gift indeed.
Do you have any idea how I might make it more effective? So far, it's shown me where my father lives with the High Elves, and that's about it.
He points to one of the female druids, and she steps up and may I see it, please?
Oh, sure.
So she takes it, unrolls it, looks it back and forth, and it just looks like.
Right.
And have you been polite to it?
Yes, I've been showing it the utmost respect.
Generally, always remember to be very polite and praising it every chance you get when you ask a favor. And generally it will only show you what you need to be shown in a time of great need for important deeds. Now, it can be fickle. Sometimes, especially if you're not polite, it might show you many other things. So be very careful to be exceptionally polite, and don't overuse it, or it will feel used. It is a sentient creature of sorts.
Yes, and this map, much like the god Cord, is not a banker. You do not trade boon for boon.
Correct.
Yes.
It is related to the Fae.
Pardon?
Both the creature you encountered and this map are both creatures related to the Fae, which means they can be tricky. So be very careful never to insult it.
Excellent. Why, thank you so very much for your advice.
You are most welcome.
Who's a good man? Thank you, my good friend. Keep you with me forever.
You feel a warm, tingling sensation go through your hand. All right. Is there anything else we should know?
I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I think that about covers it all.
Farhad?
That's all I recall.
All right, everybody roll your intelligence.
Of very importance.
Everybody roll your intelligence.
Nope.
Nope.
Everybody forgot the most important thing. Yeah.
No?
Nope.
Oh, jeez.
I did, but I'm not there. So I remember what we needed to
All
know,
right.
but I'm not there, so it doesn't really matter.
Janera speaks up. Well, perhaps the cat?
They mentioned the cats.
When?
They said that the cat was tracking them.
Okay, but did you talk more about that other than just mention the cat tracking you?
What?
Did you talk?
It
about
had
that?
6 legs.
No, not
That's
that
what they
one.
call
Oh, the stinky one.
The stinky cat.
Yes.
Oh, I killed the stinky cat.
No, that was
No,
a
you
different
didn't.
cat.
That was
That's
a regular cat.
cat.
That was a regular
Oh.
cat that we caught trying to catch this
Yeah.
stinky cat.
Okay, so in character, so perhaps the cat.
Came back.
The very next day.
Do you
Very next day.
do we remember the cat that was following us, or following you? Sorry, she wasn't there, but you guys
Yeah,
talked about it.
It was
There was a
stinky.
cat you said was following you that was strange at some point.
It was stinky and it was scary.
So now the
It
druid.
was not just stinky. It smelled like death. The kind of carrion smell that would wake you up.
As if it were a skunk beat
All
to death
the
with a
druids,
salmon.
the elderly druids there look very alarmed.
Wow.
It
One of the
seemed
reasons
evil.
We got rid of our Mordredian loot was because it had been following us and finding us even in the most remote locations.
They're all looking at each other with very alarmed looks. That explains a few recent concerns we've had. That is important information indeed. What did you do with this creature?
Well, I tried setting some traps for it, but we just caught a regular cat, and then we got rid of our all
No,
our-
these are intelligent. They're demon-possessed undead.
Isn't that what you smashed against the tree, or was that the monkey?
Oh, that's a monkey.
You smashed the monkey against a tree?
It bit me.
They all look at you aghast.
What?
He was a simple man from a small town.
He was
With
trying to steal
simple
my
solutions,
stuff.
small
I told it to get on the pack and it bit me.
Fine. Yes, about this. These are the equivalent of some use hellhounds that will pursue you across the plains no matter where you go. But Morgana has an affinity for cats and will sometimes bind these demon spirits to them. And they're basically her minions, and her eyes, and her ears.
Wait, so are they following the magic stuff that we had? Because we had some things for the murdered children already.
Yes, though they're not limited to that.
Oh. Oh, shoot, that's
And
We
if
haven't
they ever
seen it
bite
in
or
a
claw
long time.
you're in trouble.
Okay, that's vague and ominous, but was it?
They can eventually possess you.
That would be really bad.
Yes, and they're extremely difficult to kill.
Just like a normal house cat. I have
Do
to.
you have to like put like a silver stake through its heart and then like shove garlic in its mouth and throw it into the bottom of the river that's moving water that's so many feet high?
It requires an exorcism and then complete disintegration as much as possible of the corpse.
Huh.
Without ever touching it, else it can possess you to its will, and Morgana's will.
Uh-oh.
That sounds really.
We haven't seen it. Should we still be scared?
We have had reports of one or two of these roaming through the woods in the west.
So
we
should
thought
be
they had
more
escaped
scared.
from the Infernium. But from what you say, these are advanced scouts is what it sounds like.
That could be true, because that was our first little adventure.
And a couple of them went through here weeks ago. Before you were saying Balkoth was taken.
Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good.
And you say there was an odor. You had a distinctive odor. Was it decay? Was it sulfur? What was the odor?
It was decay. Like a.
There was a, when they say sulfur, you're like, that's the other smell you couldn't place. It was a difficult, like it smelled like rotting corpse and something else rotten. You couldn't place it when I was telling you that smell way back when. And when they say sulfur, that you're like, aha.
Ah, brimstone. Yes.
Rotten eggs.
Yes. Yes. Those are the creatures. And they have passed through here.
I'm
At
sorry.
least a couple that we know of.
I don't think we brought them.
No. Again, weeks before. These are... Beware of them. Beware of them.
I mean, can you just like?
Do not touch them.
Okay. Don't
They
say-
can be slain temporarily. You shoot them with arrows or other weapons. You must have magically enchanted weapons generally to do much harm to them.
Oh.
Generally,
silver arrows
non-magical weapons
work?
will barely hurt them. Silver can do a little bit of harm.
Silver can harm.
The more magical, the greater the harm.
We don't have anything
It's very
magical
difficult to do
now.
much to them with non-magical weapons. Silver is at least something. Well, that explains much. Thank you for your information. We've been a little isolated since the traffic has stopped.
Yeah.
But as I said before, he takes a deep breath. For now, let us set aside what we cannot worry. Let's set aside our worries over what we cannot control. Let us be grateful for what we do have. Continue this feast. That when the evening comes, when the sun falls, the Fae will be bringing to us some wonderful gifts. An even better night awaits you than the night before. And enjoy. Set aside your worries for at least a few days. Just set it aside as best you can.
I'll try.
You'll be safe here. None of these creatures, Morgana, any of the others can harm us here. We are all safe here in the Druid's Gate. Enjoy it while you can.
Thank
Make the
you.
most of it.
Thank you for your hospitality. So far, it's been fantastic.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. We must go prepare for the next days of festivities. Again, if you need anything as you prepare to go on in a few days, let us know. I'm sure. Ask whoever is on watch at the time if you have a list of needs. We can't guarantee that we have it, but we'll do what we can if you have specific requests.
I would like a breastplate.
A breastplate?
Well, my leather armor isn't very sturdy.
We do have leather armor that might fit you, but we don't have any metal armor.
You got anyone that works metal here at all?
No. Not only blacksmithing, not armor smithing.
Could you see if maybe there's better leather armor than what I came
Oh,
in?
That we could certainly do.
That would
Again,
be nice.
speak to the Day Watch, give them a list of what your needs are,
Okay.
and they'll take care of it for you.
Thank you.
Be well. Enjoy the time you have here. Relax, enjoy. And they get up and kind of float away. Walking within their robes and such. I mean, literally float.
Like none.
Yeah.
Alright, what do you guys do?
Hey,
Gather missiles.
Farhan Moisha?
All over.
Yeah.
You got any
You put a
silver?
list together. Okay, well, you talk with them.
I've got some silver arrows.
Well, I mean, just like silver coins.
Do you want to join the player?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to join the player. Can I level up?
I do have some silver coins, but I don't know where I wrote them down. Oh, here we go. I've got 48 silver coins.
Oh.
Torin, what are you doing?
Right now I'm seeing if Farhan Moisha have silver coins because you can make silver bullets.
Sure. Yep.
But we don't have any guns.
No, sling bullets.
Sling bullets.
Please.
Oh yeah. See, my uncle Remus, right? So he was a military man, and so they had like the regular ones.
Or just get really good at the flick with the coins. I had Sean was able to take a nickel I think it was a quarter. He could
beam it at you?
embed him in a windshield.
Oh
And
man.
then the
Right into the windshield.
kangaroo punches it back at you.
What's that?
Then the kangaroo punches it back at you.
Torin,
Yeah.
if you know how to make bullets
Yeah.
out of my
Yep, I
coins,
see
you
that
could
pretty
have
much.
my silver coins.
All right, yeah, because you're supposed to take silver and you're supposed to take some gold around it too. 'Cause
4 foot
silver's
better.
not heavy enough, and you don't need much gold.
We also still have several money pouches we haven't actually. We also still have several money pouches we
Like
haven't
cash
actually
True.
Opened?
dug through and
Okay.
All right then.
figured out. So
In fact, you had some items, didn't you not? Some rings and such.
there's a ring which
I don't know. I didn't touch any of this stuff.
but
But you're otherwise occupied.
yeah, it's
Okay, so what are you doing, Torin? I need to
pretty much
actually
down to the
switch
ring
the-
and
All right,
the
then.
money pouches.
The things I'm mainly going to do is collect up some like silver and then go see if I can find, because I'm sure no one wants to work, but there might be someone who's like, fine, that will melt it down just enough to like make some like crude silver bullets,
Okay.
just to have something.
Well, remember what he said to do if you had requests.
Oh yes, yeah, go ask the
Daywatch guy.
watch guy. So I'll go to him and be like,
Once
hey.
you gathered up what you need.
Yeah.
I'm giving Torin my
So you're helping
silver.
Torin. Okay, Farhad, what are you doing?
I'm handing off my 11 silver to Torin,
Okay.
and then I'm going to take a nap
All right then.
Okay.
before the party tonight.
All right. Excellent. And so, zip on over to talk. We've got about 1 minute before our break. So you're up at the door. Big looming door.
I'm coming.
Yeah, with your mouth full. That'll teach you. Well, okay, we're out of time.
Of something chewy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I believe at the end of the last session
Yeah.
I knocked.
Yeah, you knocked. And it kind of echoed and reverberated.
Yeah.
Okay?
That
So
was
after
what
the
I was waiting
echoing
for a response.
reverberation, fade away, silence.
May I come in to seek the wisdom of Tathar the Magnificent?
Magnificent, magnificent, magnificent.
That's gotta be a
You hear
spell.
it, and the door goes, opens inward on squeaky hinges. And the door's, 8 feet tall. And it hits a wall and goes boom, boom, boom. and it's dark inside. Seems to be a large room.
Starting to wish
You
he
smell
hadn't come
lots
alone.
of chemical smells and other things hit your nose, which reminds you of your apprenticeship days.
Mm-hmm.
So it smells very much like a lab.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I enter.
Okay, and we'll leave it there for the break. You got in a whole few steps. We'll be back in about 10 minutes or so, so stick around. We'll be back.